We're going to call the meeting to order. Doing a Pledge of Allegiance does not work, so just so you say no. Is there a, we'll have a moment of silence. Is there anyone that we should be thinking of? Certainly the family of Harley Higgins, like to his daughter Jamie. Harley passed away last week at the age of 98. Like to lift up the Cullen family, whose Dennis's mother passed away. So lift them up. Anybody else?
The
Okay.
the McKennas.
The McKennas. Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, if everybody can just bow their heads, take a minute. Okay, thank you very much. All right, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes. Or actually, let's we're going to skip that. We're going to go right down the town elections because our town attorney is here and she can only give us till 7:30. So we're going to move her up forward because she has another municipality meeting that she has to attend. So Darren, Connor, do you want to, or actually Matt, do you want to explain one more time where people can find this information?
Sure. In the bottom right-hand corner of the chat, there is a link. It's not hyperlinking, so you'll have to copy and paste. It's the draft town election that the council will be reviewing this night. So if you want to follow along, go ahead and copy that link and put it in your URL. The council should have received an email earlier with a direct attachment.
Okay, Connor, Darren, you want to get started?
Sure. Do you want me to take it, Connor?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. So at the last meeting, we talked about the upcoming election, and after the meeting and during the meeting, I sort of touched on some of the issues that we would have to address. And after the meeting, I circulated a document that sort of went through some of those issues for us. Based on, I think, all of our sentiments at the last meeting and people that we've heard from, we decided that the traditional election of in-person voting wasn't appropriate for the June 1st election. So I set out to explore a couple of options. I contacted a number of municipalities in the area to figure out what they were doing. I gleefully plagiarized some of their plans. And then in consultation with our town attorney, we sort of figured out what we are constrained by with our town charter and what the effect of the governor's executive order regarding municipalities and elections was. So what we have come down to is that although we anticipate most or many of the ballots being cast by mail, we need to, as a condition of our charter, a requirement of the charter, provide for a a polling location for in-person voting. And so, whereas other municipalities might have looser restrictions on what their voting requirements are, we have to have this. And so the option of hiring an election vendor to conduct a completely by mail election doesn't exist for us. So what we created is a ballot box, drop box election with a mail-in option. And one of the provisions for this would be that all ballots must be received by the town by June 1st. So there will be no extension or delay of the election. It will occur on and before June 1st, with a counting of the ballots to proceed immediately after that. So I circulated an emergency plan for this on, I don't remember which. yesterday to all of you. I heard from some of you. I also sent it to the candidates that I knew had declared by then. And I heard back from Nate Engel with a couple of comments and concerns. And I think they're very valid. So I think we ought to revise the plan to take some of those comments into account. I don't know if I should stop there and let people sort of respond, or Bridget's the only one that I heard from this afternoon is, with some feedback on the plan. But, so that's where we're at now.
I just wanted to clarify, Darren, that the ballot, that we would be voting until 9 p.m. or accepting votes till 9 p.m. Is that correct?
That's correct. According to our charter, we will have polling hours from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Where at 9 p.m. voting would be cut off. Anything we've received by mail that day, or anything we've received up to 9 p.m. in our drop box, would be counted towards the election.
Okay, and then our election supervisors have 24 hours to count. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I'm just thinking that. Okay, so they could instead of starting at 9 o'clock at night, they could actually start first thing in the morning if they wanted to, or they could count for 3 hours that night.
And that's something that we are looking for guidance from Sue Ellen regarding, that there's a provision that requires canvassing. And my preference is to allow them to do a lot of the pre-processing of ballots as they come in. What that means, in my view at least, and subject to Sue Ellen correcting me, is that the outer envelope would be opened, the affidavit would be reviewed, the number on the envelope would be compared to what was sent to the voter, and then, assuming that it's all confirmed as assigned to that voter, it would be put into a stack. The sealed inner ballot envelope would be put aside in a stack for later counting.
And we had discussed that, and that does allow them to go ahead and process some votes ahead of time, and it keeps the secrecy of the ballot, but it does allow them to go through the list and start checking people off. And so,
well, one of the things that I found when we talked to, I talked to again a number of municipalities, including Rockville, which held their election before the virus issue came out, and they found that there was approximately a doubling of the turnout for this kind of election. And so I think that we have to anticipate that the election judges will have a lot of work to do within the 24 hours. So as best as we can, I would like them to be able to get started early.
Sue Ellen, does anything prevent us from just changing the charter if we voted to amend the charter?
Yes. There is a provision that was pointed out to me by Darren, who had made a very thorough search, that at the very end of your charter, that doesn't allow, that puts additional restrictions on your charter in terms of timing. Generally speaking, those kinds of provisions are not in charters, because you start getting in the way of the fact that the state has kind of occupied the field about charters. But to be extra careful, we have to go by it. And the governor isn't able to lift that restriction. Only the council could do that by a charter amendment. So we weren't able to make a charter amendment. Everyone else was able to do that wanted to, and did. A lot of them did. But you are not able to, because you have a separate rule in your charter that self-imposes a certain amount of time.
For charter amendments.
Yes. And now that they've adopted this requirement that there be the 21 days before of notice before you can have a public hearing normally for a charter, you really don't need the one that's in your charter now, because the state actually requires more time. And it's very unusual when you come into
really nervous about in-person voting. This makes me super nervous.
Well,
about person?
It's not going to be, it's by and large not going to be in person. And when people bring their ballot into the drop box, you don't have to touch the box. You just drop it in.
Right. So the way that this has been set up is to mail ballots with returned ballot envelopes and affidavits to all registered voters. They have the option. They can send that back through the U.S. mail, and they'll get it in this third week of May. I mean, in a week or so's time, and so they'd have plenty of time to put it in the mail, and for it to get to us before June 1st, so they can do complete mail-in voting if they want. However, because of our charter, one other thing is we have to have a polling place, and it has to be operating until 9 p.m. So we had to have a mechanism to collect votes up until that time, and we did not want to have a in-person poll. So we will have a drop box affixed to the building that as soon as it is installed, which Matt believes should be by Monday of next week, the drop box will be open and available to accept dropped in ballot envelopes. They'll be collected every day by a judge and stored in a secure place. And then the very last collection will be at 9 p.m. on Monday, June 1st. So again, this isn't opening the drill hall and having people walk in. If they want to, if they prefer not to mail it, or they forget, or it comes down to that Monday and they're not sure it can get there in time, they would just walk to town hall or drive over here as they would have normally, but they just walk up. They can drop it into a contactless drop box and then walk away.
So at closing time, there's one box and lots of people going to vote. Who's going to stop them from rushing the box or from not keeping distance? I mean, that person is being put in a precarious position. Those people are,
The supervisors of elections have charge of how you conduct elections, and I am sure that they will think this one through too, and anybody who's got a comment should make it to them, and they will start marking out on the pavement how far back you have to be from everybody else to stand in line if they need that. You know, there's a number of places that are doing this right now. I live in a town that's doing this right now. So one of the things you do in your materials is urge people to either mail it in or put it in the box before the day of election, to try to get them to do that too. But you know, it's like anything else. You can mark out on the ground where people have to stand.
One thing I want to add to this is that, you know, our election is falling somewhat in the middle of other municipal elections. Some, like Rockville, had it before the crisis hit. Others, like Garrett Park, are several weeks ahead of us. And so by contacting them, I learned some of their preferences. And one of the preferences was people's anxiety over mailed ballots being received and counted. And so even people who conducted completely by mail elections looked back and said, we would have preferred to have an option for the drop box, because that way they don't have to worry about whether their ballot got lost in the mail. It was clearly not. It was put in the box by them.
So to bridge it to your concern, I believe the supervisors of elections can come up with clear and guidance and rules as to, you know, where you have to, does the ballot need to be in the box at 9 p.m.? Do they have to be in line? In the case that there may be a line preventing people from accessing, do they have to be in the line? But those supervisors of election, along with, you know, Sue Ellen's guidance, can create, and then we will post and distribute, you know, the rules. But I think the other thing, to Darren's point, is I personally, you know, just advise people to mail it in, or they can bring it to the Dropbox any day between when the Dropbox is installed, which is, you know, planning to be next Monday, through June 1st. So certainly if they want to wait all the way until June 1st, they'd have that option, but they would also have many, many days to come by and drop it off prior to that.
Let me jump in, because I did want to bring up a comment that I know that Nate is on the call, but I did talk with him earlier today, and in the draft that I sent out, you know, I was kind of optimistic. I thought, well, here we are on the 11th, we'll have the ballots ready to go by the 13th. And his concern, which I think is absolutely valid, is if people get these ballots and he hasn't had a chance to introduce himself to the residents, it's a little bit unfair to sort of the newcomer versus the people that are fairly well known. And so I think that what we should talk about tonight, when we would like to mail these ballots out, so that we can balance giving people ample time to return them and give people ample time to campaign in what are sort of unusual circumstances.
Well, one of the things like this week, and you know, we have a forum on the 18th, and we'll talk about that a little later. But I would think that you wouldn't want to mail out the ballots until after the forum, at least. And then we're also we'll be sending out a journal at the end of this week, so it'll arrive in people's mailboxes before Monday. So, and that will give people an opportunity to, and I'll be sending out an email tomorrow now that we know who all the candidates are, an opportunity to write.
I think Tracy froze on us. Tracy, can you repeat that?
I have a question
To the
about
forum.
this forum on the 18th. Have we put something out about that? Because I haven't seen anything.
Well, we haven't put anything out yet because we're going to talk about that after we talk about the election. We always have a forum the week before, but the week before happens to be Memorial Day. So that's kind of a set, the Monday after our town meeting.
Right. And I think the second part of that, Dwayne, is in order to talk about it, we need to know who all the candidates were going to be, right? Filing deadline was just today at 4. So part of it is, you know, to be able to discuss with those candidates directly also.
Yeah, because it's either a meet and greet if we don't have competition, but we do. So we will have an actual forum this year instead of a meet and greet.
Okay.
So I don't know, Darren, I mean, it seemed to me if people had the Memorial Day is the 25th, which is a Monday. I mean, how much time do you need to have your ballot? I mean, I would think if you had it for a week, that's more than enough time to, I mean, you should open it, fill it out, mail it, or drop it off.
I think there are two things at play here. One is Nate's concern ballot that, you know, provide each of the candidates a little bit of time to digitally campaign. We will have our forum. The second is logistical. We'll know more hopefully tomorrow, Matt. Matt should get a tracking number for the actual the ballot box. And it is expected that it will be here Friday. And then obviously just needs to be installed. So we are optimistic that that is Monday. But if ballots were to go out, I mean, we'll know that by Friday/Monday, but I think if we had the ballots ready to go out on Tuesday the 19th, that would provide people sufficient time as well and occur after the candidate forum.
So if they went out on the 19th, they would be received, say, the 21st or so. That's a Thursday. Friday through Monday is Memorial Day weekend. That gives them the rest of Memorial Day weekend week, and then the ballots would be due the 1st. I mean, if people are okay with that, I think that's that balances the various interests.
I mean,
Any other comments from the council?
I personally think that's a good timeline, is to have, because it also doesn't put an extraordinary amount of pressure on getting these ballots put together, which now that we have the candidates' names, that process can begin. But that gives us a couple of days to get them printed, get them assembled, and then get them mailed, and then send them out to be mailed on the 19th.
And we're doing that locally instead of in New Jersey, which I think is one of the third parties that we had talked about.
Yeah, I contacted a number of print vendors, and the lowest price just happens to be right here in Kensington. So yes, it'll be done locally.
Okay. They'll do the mailing too?
Yes. They will assemble the packages. They will be stamped, ready to go. I mean, it's a fairly big undertaking, but the person I spoke with seemed, perfectly capable of handling it.
Okay. Any other questions on the council?
I have a question about the Dropbox. How is it secured as far as who maintains the key to it?
I would,
I can,
Go ahead, Matt. Or maybe,
and Spencer Harrell is our,
Matt,
yeah, I mean, Susan, if I'm correct, in the past, with our absentee ballots, they have been, you said a lot of people just walk in, vote the ballot at the counter, and then give it to you, and so you become the keeper of the ballots for the election, for the early filed ones.
Correct.
Is that correct? And
Yeah.
you keep them in a locked location.
Yes.
Okay. And I think we can reconsider that, given that we're talking about hundreds instead of a couple dozen. I think what's important is that they be kept kept locked up with, and we know who has access to the key, and the person is associated with either the election supervisors or you.
Correct.
the surface mount box that we purchased, it's got a commercial grade lock on it. There's 2 keys. We can assign the keys to the election supervisor and one to the town clerk. I'll send you an email with the actual box that we purchased, so you can have the dimensions and any other information that you have. So.
And where are we having the ballots mailed to?
to people's home addresses or whatever the address is that's
Oh.
on their registration, I believe. Is that
No,
correct?
on the return path.
To
where are they-
here, to the town hall.
On the outgoing ones, there are some from, like, there's about 17 or 18 different countries that they have to go to.
I think for those, we just need to put them in the mail, and good luck, everybody. I mean, it's an unusual circumstance. We're not, it's better than what they would have in a normal election.
But all the ballots come to 3710 Mitchell Street, is that correct?
That was the plan. I think we would have them be addressed to the election supervisors.
Okay.
Shouldn't-
Does that
shouldn't
answer your
these be-
question?
No, shouldn't these be going to a dedicated post office box, or where one person has the key, like Susan has the key, or the election supervisor has the key, not just to the town hall?
In the past,
open.
they've gone to Susan. In the past, they've gotten mailed to Susan. So I guess it's a matter of, are we going to change that, and how are we going to change that?
How is mail received at town hall now?
Well,
Well,
with no one there, it's dropped in a box outside the door.
All right, well, you'd have to change that, certainly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Could we just request a mail stop by the post office, have them just hold it at, and then, just the only allowable people to pick it up are Susan or Matt,
I can,
or a
I can
supervisor,
call-
whomever.
I can call the postmaster tomorrow morning and see if they'll do that for us.
Or see if you can get a temporary box, post office box.
Okay.
And that could be the address, that's put on the envelope. See if we can get one for like 3 weeks. I don't want them to charge us for, a year. But yeah, with the building closed, that makes sense. And we don't know when it's going to officially open. So, okay.
Prior
That's a good
to
question.
this happening, how was mail received at the town hall?
Well,
They
right
just
now,
walk.
there's a box outside the
No,
building.
I understand
Yeah,
that. I'm saying before this
they-
all happened, how was mail received?
It's delivered to the front desk daily.
So somebody would come upstairs and drop it
Correct.
off.
So they'll come upstairs, they'll leave it at the front desk. Somebody's always here during operational hours. So
Okay. And is there a mail slot in the door for anywhere? to
Yeah.
be-
no, there is not.
Okay.
And it wouldn't be secured anyway. It would just go into the, you know, under the floor or something. So that would be a problem as well. Okay, so it looks like we're probably going to have to get a post office box for the ones that are mailed. Okay.
Unless holding it works. Unless, you know, holding it at the post office works. One of those two options, though, to make sure that it's given to somebody who's responsible for them.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. No questions for Sue Ellen? Send her down to Chevy Chase Village?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Sue Ellen.
Thank you very much. Thank you for accommodating me this evening so I can go to the other one. I appreciate it. Good
Not a
night.
problem.
Good night.
Thank you.
Right.
Good night.
Thank you.
Let give people in the audience a chance to ask any questions regarding the voting. Matt, can you organize that? Any questions?
I have a question.
Okay, who is that?
This is Nate Engel. Can you see me?
Okay, I just have to change the page. Yes, I see.
Hi. So thanks for Darren's description of the concern that I had emailed him about. I appreciate Darren reaching out to me to talk about it earlier today. I just would request that I think he expressed my concerns well. I just to reiterate, the major concern is just being able to get the word out about one's candidacy. And I would just ask the council to consider delaying mailing the ballots as long as possible. I don't know why we would need 2 weeks for them to, essentially 2 weeks or a little bit less than 2 weeks to fill out their ballot. So I'm particularly concerned about people who are just registering to vote. I know there's probably not that many, but if the registration ends on the 26th, but the ballots went out on the 18th, they might miss the opportunity to be effectively engaged with the candidates. So as long as you can delay the mailing, I think it would be much appreciated. And I'm not speaking directly for all the candidates, but I'm sure all the candidates would probably appreciate that. And then the question that I did have was, why is it according to the charter that the votes have to be counted 24 hours after closing at 9 p.m.? Could they not just be postmarked by June 1st? I don't know why they would have to be received by June 1st. That might give it a little bit more wiggle room with when you mail the ballots out. Thank you very much.
Do you want to answer, Darren?
Yeah, I can tackle a couple of those things. I agree that we want people to give careful consideration to each of the candidates and not just get the ballot and be quick to fire it back. And so I think that ought to be part of our messaging to people. One of the advantages of not conducting this election by mail, strictly by mail, is that I think people have the opportunity to hold off until the weekend or the day of the election to drop off their ballots. And so I think we ought to take advantage of that and let people hear from them. So like I said, I think it's a balance of needing to get ballots in people's hands and also giving people a fair chance to respond and give candidates a fair chance to campaign. Hopefully with social media, with the listserv, with all those kind of things, we should be able to accomplish that. I'm sorry, Nate, I'm forgetting the second part of the question right now. The 24 hours.
Voting.
That's right. That is in section 712 of the charter. And so that's one of those provisions that led us towards conducting a ballot box with mail-in option.
Is there any way to put on the ballot, though, instructions as to when they should mail it in if they're mailing it from the town of Kensington for it to be received by June 1st? I just worry that, someone waits till, I don't know, Saturday, it might not get there by Monday. Who knows with our mail system?
Right, and that's part of what we struggled with. If we had had a complete mail-in option to send things to New Jersey, we could have specified, either a postmark date of June 1st or received by of June 11th. But we do have a hurdle with our charter as far as what it requires. And then we also had an outpouring of support for not delaying the election past June 1st. And so this is what we've tried to do to accommodate all of that. So,
hey, Nate, this is Connor. I wanted to add a couple of things to your specific timeline questions, because Darren and I, like he said, we wrestled with this as we looked at other municipalities and our charter and in talking with Sue Ellen, and a couple of factors. One was, you bring up a good point. What if somebody isn't registered and they have till the 26th to register? In ours, the way our registration is set up, our voter registry is set up, is if you registered with Montgomery County, you're already on our voter registration, and that was already pulled by Susan. We already have that list. But we do a supplemental registry where if for some reason you are not registered with the county and you only want to register with the town, you have until May 26th, but you won't get a ballot until you're registered. And so this was another thing. It's all about timetables that we had to work around. Was our charter allows specifically up until the 26th for somebody to register, and then they have to be able to receive a ballot. So Susan has to be able to get them a ballot by that time, which is fine because somebody can drop it off in town, right? Once they have it, then we also needed to make sure that there was sufficient time that once they have that ballot, if they were choosing to mail it, they could drop it in the mail and get it back. And to your point about timetables, and Darren hit on it, working with Sue Ellen, the instruction that we simply have is it needs to be received by the town by 9 p.m. on June 1st. And so knowing that we can't control the U.S. postal system and what might occur, and not trying to add the risk of their uncertainty into it. Our point is simply, if you're hedging and you're not sure that putting it in the mail will get it here on time, we have a mechanism where you can just bring it to town hall on any day up until 9 p.m. and drop it into the box here at town hall. But all of those were things that are dictated by our charter. And you heard Sue Ellen mention, we have some specific portions of our charter that other municipalities don't, including the late registration, including the fact that we have to have a polling place, and including that polling place must be open until 9 p.m. on election night, and that our ballot must be counted by 24 hours after the poll closes. And so that put us on this kind of fixed timetable.
Thanks, that makes sense.
Just one thing to add to Nate's, to Connor's comments. We do anticipate 2 or possibly 3 waves of mailing. We'll do the bulk of them first. For anybody who registers by May 26th, we will have to do a second. And then to the extent that anybody reports a lost ballot, right now I have it on May 28th, but that's all subject to input from the council and public.
That was my follow-up question. Thank you. Okay. Thanks both.
I see that Joe Campbell has his hand up.
Yeah, I just said.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, Dr. Campbell.
Thank you, Mayor Furman. Yeah, and thanks to the council for all the efforts here on putting together what will be an unusual election. I'm wondering where the Board of Elections is in all of this. I mean, it's a town-appointed committee that's supposed to oversee the elections, and I haven't heard anything at all from the Board of Elections about this procedure. And I'd feel a little more comfortable if they had weighed in and had some contributions to make about the procedures here. And I have a second question, which has to do with the timing of the proposed forum on the 18th, I believe, of May. This is the first I've heard about that, and it just seems like it's very, very rushed. I'm wondering if you could perhaps consider postponing it for a few days. I realize the Memorial Day weekend adds a wrinkle, adds a complication to that, but perhaps late in the week next week would be a more optimal time. I think a week or less than a week is going to be really very rushed, and I have my doubts whether there's going to be a decent turnout for that forum. So I appreciate any responses to those two questions.
Okay, thank you. I kind of want to finish the conversation first with the election and not get into the forum. That'll be a separate topic. On the election supervisors, we have been in touch with all three of them. They have agreed, they understand that it's going to be different this year. But you have to understand too that typically our election supervisors, I mean, this is new to everybody. So, and the fact that we can't all be in a room together. So that they are well aware of what they're facing. So they have been part of the conversation.
And their response was, count me in.
Right.
So it was very enthusiastic as wanting to do whatever it took to get this election conducted.
And until we got this in place and approved, we didn't know what to tell them their job's going to be. Now they're going to know, and they will take that up.
Oh, that's reassuring. I would find it even a little more reassuring if they were present and were able to weigh in on that in person themselves rather than through the elected officials. But it is their responsibility to oversee the elections. It's pretty clearly stated in the town.
And they do, but I think you should appreciate the fact that up until this point, elections have not been that complicated here. So I think we're trying to get it into with the town attorney and getting it in place, and then we'll bring them in to let them finish the job.
Of course, I realize that, Mayor Furman, and there's no need to to put it in those terms. I mean, it's obvious that this is a different kind of election. I said as much in the outset of my remarks. So, I don't think it's necessary to sort of frame it in any other fashion. But I just think it would be reassuring to hear from them at this meeting while this is being discussed. And I don't know if this is something that town officials, elected officials, necessarily should take the lead in. I have my reservations about that.
Well, we discussed this at the last meeting, and you didn't bring that up in the last meeting, so.
Connor and I are not up.
So what is that supposed
election.
to mean? I mean, I
I'm
don't
just
understand
saying that
what is that supposed to mean? If I didn't bring it up
meeting.
last time, then I can't bring it up this time. I
And
mean,
that's
kind
fine, but I'm just saying it's a little late to bring it up now. And
why is it late? Why is it late? It's an
Because they're not
appropriate
gonna be
question
online,
since
Dr.
they're the
King.
ones who are supposed to be overseeing the elections. And I said I would feel more comfortable if the Board of Elections was dialed in on this and was offering their views at this meeting. I mean,
Okay.
I think that's not appropriate to. It's really not appropriate to make that kind of characterization. If you didn't bring it up last month, you're prohibited from bringing it up this month.
Well, it would have been.
Joe,
No, that's really not appropriate. I'm sorry.
Thank you,
To
Dr.
that point, Darren and I did speak with, we exchanged emails with members of the election board of supervisors. We were also, tasked to just coordinate this with our town attorney because she is coordinating it for several municipalities, as you heard tonight. There's also, obviously some shifting things coming out of the governor's office on what might we be able to do or might we not. And after a thorough review of our charter, we realized we're one of the few municipalities that we have a bit of a pair of handcuffs that made doing a charter amendment not possible. So we've worked to set all of these things up, and to Mayor Tracy's point, all of this is set. It will go to Susan as the clerk treasurer and the board of supervisors who will run the entire election. But we've talked with them along the way, and to Darren's point, they understood. We, even to the point of asking very directly if they were comfortable operating an election, in these times, and everybody reassured us that yes, they are comfortable in performing their functions.
You're on mute, Dwayne.
Well, my concern is simply that I would have been more reassured to hear them say that directly rather than through a representative. That's all. And I think it's not inappropriate to expect that kind of sign off on that.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Dwayne?
Who was invited to the meeting with the election supervisors? Because I don't recall being invited to this meeting.
Weren't we
They
all
were
on the
just-
email?
I mean, was I invited?
We sent an
Bridget
email to
invited?
them asking if they wanted to serve. I'm pretty sure that I had a mayor.council on that. There was no,
Bridget, were you invited to that meeting? Because I don't recall being invited.
it wasn't a meeting.
Sorry, I don't know how to do Zoom. I think there was mention that Mayor Tracy put Darren and Connor on it because their seats weren't up.
That's on the
Freeze.
She froze on us again.
mayor doc said
Let me answer.
I'm a candidate and I didn't want anything.
Sorry, Tracy, you were freezing.
So,
Sorry.
Tracy, I think I can answer the question unfrozen.
Actually, Darren.
You sent an email
Darren-
to everybody, including
Darren.
mayor.council. So Dwayne, you and Bridget and all of us received all of the communications from all of the election supervisors who responded.
And what address was that sent to? Because I don't recall ever getting that at the email address that I asked Matt to forward all my correspondence to.
Okay, Dwayne, I just pulled it up. Everything went to mayor.council@tok.md.gov. And so that's how it gets distributed to the council members.
And we were actually invited to this meeting.
There was
It's
no
not an
meeting.
It was not,
invitation.
It was an email.
Dwayne, if I misspoke, there was an email communication back and forth with the supervisors that started on April 27th. The rest of the coordination was between myself and Darren and the town attorney, as we were asked at last month's town council meeting to help lead up these efforts with our town attorney, as myself and Darren are not up for re-election this cycle.
Fair enough.
Anything else?
No.
Is there any other questions regarding I think one thing that might be helpful is the letter. Are we attaching a letter with the ballot explaining to people what they need to do?
So I have prepared a set of ballot instructions. And
I think it would be a good idea to distribute them to the candidates so that they can look at them and make sure that they don't have any questions and they understand exactly what's is happening. So
Sure.
those should go out towards the end of the week and have everybody look at it and make sure, I mean, I would think by Thursday to, if not sooner.
I can circulate them probably tomorrow because there were minimal comments. We have the instructions, and then I have some changes to the overall plan that I circulated that are mostly not substantive.
And then we'll have hopefully we'll have the information regarding a post office box of where it's going to be sent.
Correct.
Okay. Is there any other questions? Okay. All right, we will move on. Let's just go back up to the top and just get the minutes approved. I believe Darren had made 2 changes and they have been changed on the minutes that you've received. One was regarding the signage vote. That's been corrected. And Darren, what was the other one?
It was the procurement of the traffic board.
Correct. Thank you.
That's right. Okay.
So I will make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Dwayne, you're on
thank you.
mute. Dwayne, we can't hear you.
Is there a moment for discussion?
Oh, all right. Sorry, we can go back. What was the discussion?
So on the second page of the minutes, I didn't merely question the placement of the 2 speed humps within 1 block on Farragut. I preceded that comment by saying that I was planning on voting for it, but I did question why there were 2 speed humps within 1 block. But I did precede that by suggesting I was voting in favor of it. So I would like that reflected in the minutes.
Okay, it is on the actions. It does say that it was passed unanimously. Is that not good enough, or because the action, that was the discussion, and the action was when we voted on it.
It's fine.
I mean,
Okay.
I can add that you supported it in that sentence.
I would
Is that-
appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, all right, that's fine. All right, so with that one change, you want to just re-ask?
I will renew the motion to approve the minutes, subject to the 3 changes now.
Second? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, announcements. We do have candidates for our upcoming election on the 1st, June 1st. For mayor, I am running for re-election, and Pete Fosselman is also running for mayor. And then for town council, Bridget Hill-Zayat is a candidate, John Gerson, and Nate Engel. So we have 3 people running for 2 seats, and then 2 candidates for mayor. So, so this is a good time to, I'll be sending out an email tomorrow to all the candidates. We are having a forum on May 18th, sorry. We have, because of the problems with people freezing, the problems with Zoom, the candidates will be, the forum will be at Town Hall, but there'll be no audience. The MMCTV will be streaming it live. I don't have to check with them whether that's live on Facebook or on their YouTube channel. I think it's the YouTube channel, but I'll confirm.
It would be their YouTube channel.
Okay, that's what I thought. So, but it'll be live. We will have a moderator, and then we will have cable, the cable people. So I don't expect more than 11 people in the drill hall, so we'll be able to social distance, but I think it's because of the technology, the worst thing that can happen to you as a candidate is you freeze or you're garbled. So I think, to be fair, we'll all have to be in the same room, but there'll be no audience. We'll just be in the room. Does anybody have a problem with May 18th? We typically do it the Monday after the filing.
Tracy, do you mind if I talk? I have to talk to my dad's hospice nurse
Okay.
about that, because I might, if I do that, I might not be able to see my dad for 2 weeks. If
Okay.
I'm in the same room
And that's
as
fine.
people.
I have to check with the cable station and just make sure that they would be able to change, but I don't think they've got a lot going on right now, so it shouldn't be a problem.
Okay. Let me just call, I'll call them tomorrow and then I'll.
Okay.
I think Bridget's comment relates to her being in the room and being subject to then a 2-week quarantine as opposed to the date. I think the suggestion she's making is
Yeah.
that the date would
Oh, I
trigger.
see. Okay.
So,
It's not
so
the
we
day.
probably need to hear back from your doctors.
Okay. Okay. I mean,
Can I
you
just
could
ask
call in.
a logistical?
Go ahead.
Bridget, maybe just get with Tracy and MMCTV. Maybe there's a way to put, are you able to come into the building at all and be somewhere else away from everybody else if they can run? I don't even know how you do that. Never mind. You're gonna.
I don't, I'll do as much as I can, guys, but I can't, 2 weeks is a big deal right now.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Anyway, so I'll wait to hear from you tomorrow, and then let me know, and we'll send out an email. The other thing is the newsletter. We plan to send
Frozen again.
so people's mailbox forum, letting them know how the voting is going to take. I'm sorry. I don't. Okay,
You're
am I
frozen
back?
again.
And then giving each candidate the opportunity to put something in the newsletter. So I'll send information out about that as well tomorrow. But the deadline probably for turning in whatever your campaign information is I'm looking at probably Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. So if you have and probably give each person a half a page, because we're doing the journal in-house and I can't make it too big because it'll take forever to get it out. We need to get it out fast. So, but I'll follow up with that tomorrow. Is there any questions regarding the forum or with the newsletter? Or we can just wait till tomorrow. You can email me. Okay. I'm not seeing any waving.
Pete has he might be on a different screen from your main screen.
Oh, okay. I see. Oops.
Oh, I think we lost Tracy.
No, I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Now you know why we're doing the forum in person. These internet connections are
Oh, right.
spotty sometimes.
Okay. All right. Who had a question? I'm back on the
Pete.
screen. Pete had a question. Go ahead, Pete.
Thank you, Mayor Furman. One is, this is the first I'm hearing of the forum, and two is, I will not be present. I find that irresponsible. It's not social distancing. And so I would prefer it was done on Zoom or some other technology method. The town has plenty of whereabouts to be able to arrange that and make it happen. And an excuse to say that things are going to freeze or what have you is not acceptable. So I will not be at that forum if it's going to be in person with other people in the room.
Okay.
But I appreciate the opportunity.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Dr. Campbell?
Yes, thanks, Mayor Furman. I had the pending question. I raised this concern about the timing of the forum previously, and you said we would defer it to now. I think it's a little bit, I don't know, it just strikes me as pretty abrupt. I mean, it's less than a week away or a week away to have the forum, and we've heard about that a couple candidates may or may not be there. So I think we might want to look at a little later date to accommodate people, or maybe even a better forum. I also don't think that Zoom should be characterized in a blanket way as prone to freezing. I think that these are sort of internet connection problems that are local, and I think we could reach a whole lot more people, perhaps, if we advertised on Zoom in a way that's really reaching a lot of people. If we do postpone it to a later date, I think we would be well served. I think people would be more focused on the election if it were a bit later in May. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Nate, any comments from you?
Yeah. So thank you. This also is the first time I had heard about the forum. I appreciate the opportunity to have such a forum. You know, I also have some concerns about being in person, to be honest. I think that, I think you mentioned there would only be 11 people, but I can't imagine us, I'm just thinking about how that would be received, especially for not wearing masks or doing proper social distancing and precautionary measures. I think it's just, you know, as a council or potential council member, a really bad message to send when we're trying to convey that health is the #1 priority. I still haven't decided, again, because it's the first time that I'm hearing it, whether or not I would feel comfortable doing that. But I just wanted to flag that I think it's going to send a really strange message to our community potentially. And I'm comfortable with Zoom, to be honest. If it freezes, you know, it's just the luck of the draw. We do interviews with candidates where I work on, on VC all the time, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I just would ask to strongly consider moving forward with that decision to do it in person.
Okay. Well, we had not personally, but we had a town resident who shared her concern regarding Zoom sharing the meeting information too broadly, and ended up with a lot of bad things being put on Zoom. So you do have to be careful of that if you advertise too broadly, especially on social media. It was as she described it, extremely shocking. So I do think you have to be careful of that.
But the schools have done a good job with moderating who can enter and not that meeting. So you could probably designate someone to be that gatekeeper. I think that it's something that's solvable.
Mm-hmm.
We can also, there's other platforms that have better security. Zoom has a parallel server. From my friend does some of this stuff, and she was saying they're keeping these records indefinitely. If we use a different platform that maybe has better security, it might alleviate some of those problems.
I think the concern, well,
Okay.
I think the concern is twofold as I've heard it. One is Zoom's, the load on Zoom and other platforms exceeds their capabilities at some point. But then the other thing that we've found is, even tonight and last week with Dwayne's connection, is that people's internet connection goes out, and it's not fair to the voters or to the candidate if their presentation is garbled or missing. So the idea wasn't to, it's a big drill hall. The idea wasn't to bring people within unsafe distances. It was to take the services of Montgomery Cable and make sure that everybody has a reliable platform to make their presentation.
John, did you want to say anything? You're a candidate? No? Oh. We still can't hear you, John. You're unmuted, but there's no nope.
Nope, still.
I agree with Nate. I think Nate's absolutely correct.
I'm sorry, which
Well,
part? What is
rather not have a forum if we end up with some act. I mean, it just seems like you put a lot of effort into something and then you're not heard, or you freeze. So maybe it's better just not to have one. So
can anybody hear me?
yes.
I'm not sure if anybody heard my comment. I totally agree with Nate.
Oh, I did hear that.
I think it's hazardous to do it at this time. I mean, we don't even have our fountain open in our park, and now we're going to have 11 people in a drill hall without a mask.
So one thought I mean, again, some of the ideas about the candidate forum, I think were focused on technology, what we could make available to us through Montgomery County Cable, that might make it more stable, and try and make sure that each of the candidates got their message across best. I'll be honest, there were other items brought up, and Bridget, I did not realize your individual personal thing, and I'd like to not have you in a position where you have to take a 2-week self-quarantine as a result of it. I think, though, if there is to be a candidates forum over a technology like this, it doesn't have to be Zoom, but something like this, all I'd say is that, maybe there needs to be a meeting with all candidates to discuss the format of the event. I think it could become problematic to do any sort of question and back and forth, right? That's where, if you're trying to go back and forth between two candidates on an issue or a topic, and there is any sort of connectivity issues, it could lend itself, it could be really bad for one candidate if they have an outage at that moment. And it might just be, so the format just may need to be rethought as well. If there's going to be a over the web entirely candidates forum, then how that's conducted and in a question and answer type session would need to be reviewed and agreed upon by all of the candidates, so that there's everybody, you know, kind of agrees to the format prior to going into it.
Okay.
If we don't hold it on the 18th, if we want to postpone it from a week from today, and again, trying to balance concerns about giving people an opportunity to introduce themselves to residents against giving residents a time to vote and return their ballots. Are there proposals for alternative dates?
Well, if you were planning on sending them out on that Tuesday or Wednesday, and receiving them on the Thursday, I think the Thursday would be, was that the 20th or the 21st?
Thursday's the 21st.
That seems to make sense. And then people might have received it in the mail that day and might be even more apt to tune in.
Anybody else have thoughts? I see Joe Campbell has responded on the chat that May 21st would be better, so that's 2 in favor of the 21st. And if that time's available, I don't mind postponing it and putting it. It's not like we have a, you know, it doesn't have to be on a Monday night. And I'm certainly working from home, so my ability to do, you know, evening meetings is greatly increased.
I think the main thing was to try to get the form in before the ballots were received, in case somebody decides to get their ballot, turn it around really fast. But I really doesn't matter to me. It's more of that's traditionally when we do the meet and greets, and it's traditionally when we've done the forums. Everybody seems to have forgotten that, but that's fine. So I can talk to Melissa and see whether there's alternatives. The drill hall is extremely large. You can do distancing quite well there, but if people aren't comfortable with it, that's fine.
Bridget, how soon do you anticipate you'd be able to get back to us on the doctor's recommendations? I mean,
I can call tomorrow morning.
Okay, and if you could sort of get parameters on, you know, if it takes 20 feet, you know, it's a big drill hall, we could do 20 feet. If that's not going to make a difference, then, you know, I guess we could rethink the format. But, you know, I do think that I talked briefly with Tracy about this. I think there's an interest in making sure that everybody has an uninterrupted ability to present during the panel, and, you know, relying on a platform and internet connection has seemed a little bit dicey.
My circumstances are weird, so, you know, I'll work with you as much as I can.
Well, there are 5 of you. We want to accommodate everybody and have everybody get a picture of whoever it is. So I think, you know, we're not that big and bureaucratic.
Well, I did get a text. Melissa said she could help us anyhow or anyway. So whatever we decide to do, Melissa is the manager of the municipal cable station. Okay. All right. Well, we'll wait to hear from you, Bridget. And then I know, Connor, you have a lot of different platforms that you work with. Maybe there's another one. Obviously, you want to make it friendly for people to whether get the app or how they can load on. I think that's very important. So if you want to make some recommendations to Matt regarding different platforms other than Zoom, and maybe provide more security, that would be good. But they obviously have to be user friendly for
right. Yeah. Obviously anything that can load through the browser and doesn't require any downloading of software.
Right.
So I'll talk to
And
Matt.
Melissa may have suggestions for us about what can be fed into the Montgomery Cable feed if somebody is going to be remote. I mean, I think we just ought to be creative here.
Mhm.
Okay. Anybody else? I don't see hands. We're good. Okay. All right. Well, let's move on. We're not going to talk too much about Plum Kennedy. I had the Greenscape Committee has been meeting for years now. Parkway, and then it's we've been banking money in the space program, and so we've got currently $54,000 that's banked into program open space. So we're working with the Schwab landscaping, and we met with them today and laying out the sidewalk. So we need to get an application in soon. So program open space works. We've been filling out applications, telling them what we want to do. They put money into our bank, and then they pay 75% of the project, and we pay 25%. So this will include a brick walkway throughout Plum Kennedy, and it'll include a new arbor, and it will also include moving some of the gardens because the pathway is going to be readjusted in some areas. So, anyway, people in the Greenscape Committee met today with Schwab, and we've made a little modification. So we had a designer lay out the park, so we're going to meet with her and make sure we have the path going in the right way. So once it's submitted to the state, back to the state, then the Public Works will approve it, and then we space. We got pavilion, just money that they put bank every year, and you don't you get it. Sit there and get more money. My guess is because of the shortfall coming up, there'll probably be less money coming into program open space going forward. But right now we have those funds to spend in Plum Kennedy. Is there any questions? I don't see any. Okay, Susan, did you want to add anything to that? You're the program open space expert, so.
No, I think you said it correctly.
Okay, all right, I'm good. Dr. Joe, what you got?
Sorry, Mayor Furman, I couldn't understand some of your
Dr. Campbell, are you there?
Yes, I am. I couldn't understand some of your preliminary remarks on this. What is the town's exposure? Do we have any money that the town is paying for this improvement in Club Kennedy?
I just said they pay 75%.
Can't hear you.
85%. About for me. I'm sorry.
I said much of your remarks on this were garbled or unclear, and that's why I was asking what the town's exposure was.
Okay.
Let me answer. Just it's program
Okay.
75% program state and 25% town. Give it a thumbs up, Tracy, if you agree.
That's it.
So what does that come to then? 25%? Is that $10,000?
It's about $14,000.
That the town is going to be ponying up, huh?
It's budgeted in the CIP, and I view it as money well spent to make a park accessible. Any other questions?
Well, I think that spending $14,000 in these times, we should consider deferring that expense. I think that's, we really don't know what the outcome, if you will, of the pandemic is going to look like, and I think that Clem Kennedy looks great as it is now. It's well maintained by the town staff, and I don't think that we should pony up $14,000 to at this time. I think we should defer this expenditure.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Anybody else? No. See anybody
Tracy,
else?
Pete has his hand up.
Oh, sorry. Yes, Pete.
Thank you, Mayor Furman. I have to agree. I think what you all are trying to do to Clem Kennedy is certainly needed, but it's not like it's a tripping hazard. And as I said at our last meeting, we are going to be in an enormous amount of trouble financially because it's trickling down from the federal government, the state, and the county. And working for the county executive directly as part of his immediate staff, I can tell you the town of Kensington is going to be in some serious trouble. So spending $14,000 on a brick sidewalk should really be delayed for a couple of months till we get a better idea of where we're going to be financially.
Well, we can turn that down. We're getting the application in. The funds will not be approved until probably during the summer. And then, as you know, you can turn them down if you want, or you can just defer it. So this is just trying to keep it on track. So it's not like money's going to be spent tomorrow. It's going to take probably until end of August.
Right.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
Tracy, this is Connor. If I can, this is the same program we used for the pavilion.
No, it's Playground Open Space.
Oh,
with
sorry,
Pavilion.
Playground Open. But
Yeah.
but in the same vein of a grant, it is they have their timeline, and so if we want this application to be in, it needs to be completed and turned in on a specific timeline or not on a specific timeline.
It does have to be turned in on a specific timeline.
Okay, Susan, do you know what that due date is?
Well, we had put it in the annual request for this fiscal year, so we'd want to get it in before the end of June.
Yep.
And it takes them 3 to 4 months before it's approved. So, and then once it's approved, it can be done in phases, depending on how much funds we have available of the 14,000, because we just get reimbursed for whatever we spend. So we could do part of it instead of all of it at once.
Right. Okay. So if by moving forward on the application, we are putting ourselves into the process that has more or less an application deadline by the end of June. And then we will have all of next FY to evaluate our financial situation as a town and determine if we as a council want to allocate any of our CIP monies to it. So, we have, anywhere from 3 to 4 to 15 months really to make a decision on whether we spend a single dollar out of the CIP on this.
Maybe not quite that long, but it's
Or upwards of a
not quite
year.
that long.
Approved, you can start the
Yeah.
project, and you could start it slowly.
Mhm.
Or if you didn't want to do it at all this year, you could put it in the annual request for fiscal year 21, and then,
But then you have to reapply for it as well.
right, we'd have to reapply or add it to our annual request and then apply for it once July comes.
Okay, so there's the only, just thinking about the risk, the only risk is not applying. We have no options for FY21.
Right.
So
Right.
long as we apply, if awarded, it is completely up to us if we want to do anything, spend any dollar on this. And if we opt not to, because obviously we are going to be evaluating every single dollar that is being spent, as we talked about last month. If we opt not to, then we would simply look to roll it forward into FY22 and we'd have to reapply again.
Right, but if you're applying, they assume you want to do it. You want to start the project. If you don't want to start the project, then they would rather you, I guess, apply for the next fiscal year 21.
Right, and I agree. I think the problem is these are unusual times, right? Everybody keeps saying that. So the point is, in normal times, we would want to start the
Right.
project. These are not normal times. We have a desire to start it, but we also have a desire to be extremely, to have a very tight financial risk management approach. And so in several months, upwards of a half a year or more, as we know more about the next year's budget and the totality of impact, it may be that, well, we want to, the fiscal reality is we may opt not to.
Right.
But we can't do anything in 21 if we don't apply.
Right. So it wouldn't be approved probably till August or September.
Yeah.
And then you could start it when you wanted.
Got it. So my takeaway from this is this action right here on the agenda tonight is not to spend a single dollar. It is simply to move our application forward for FY21.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct, but it's actually the application in fiscal year 20.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Right.
Misspoke. Thank you, Susan.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
No.
All right. Is that no? Good. Tell them back on because it's going to introduce the some of these things. Well, we'll start with the town events. We've got the annual Labor Day parade. The ladies have been asking about applications, and obviously we have some events that are also coming up from the council. The council?
Tracy, I couldn't hear you. I think
It's freezing again. I'm wondering if I don't know how much stuff you have there, but whether you might relocate to a different part of.
Well, I'm in the town hall. You would think I would have better.
I know.
Well, let me go into Susan's office and see if it's better in there.
All right.
I mean, is it because Matt's on the same internet there?
I don't know. Matt just got kicked off, so let me see if he's on. Are you back up?
I'm trying to get on MMCs.
Okay. Do you want to come in here then?
Bobby.
What? No, I need you to, well, we're coming up. Okay, is that better? Can you hear us?
For now, yep.
For now. All right, Labor Day parade, 4th of July parade, 4th of July bike parade. Thoughts? Biggest thing with the parades is that, especially the 4th of July, the Labor Day parade, is you have to get sponsors. Not sure we're going to get any sponsors. And it's a big crowd. It's huge. So what's everybody's thoughts on that?
Realistically, I don't think it's going to happen. There's no testing. There's no real treatments. Like July, I don't know.
It's about 6 weeks away.
Yeah, there's no way.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I have a lot of wonderfully creative ideas that just don't make sense right now. And while I think it is wonderful to try and salvage something, it just doesn't make sense. I think instead what we might encourage is, because we have the COVID-19 kind of webpage that we've set up, maybe it's, hey, we want to encourage people to do a 4th of July bike deck decorating contest, right? You're just in your house or at your driveway, and if your kid wants to decorate their bike and take a picture, and the town can put together a slideshow or put something up on the website, we keep the 4th of July spirit. They get to decorate their bike, but nothing that organizes bringing kids together.
Okay. I mean, that event alone brings in 1,000+ people. So I agree with that for sure.
Yeah.
I think the main one though is the Labor Day parade too. I mean, because that one starts out planning so much earlier.
Yeah.
So
I think for all, so my lesson learned here is from talking to Ellie about Day of the Book. And she did all of her planning pre-COVID, right, for months. And I was working with her on a few things. So I did get to see it kind of firsthand. And it's a considerable amount of work and effort. And when it became obvious to her that she could not hold that event, she had to kind of unwind all of that. And then she tried to move some of it digitally online and be creative in that way. But I think the reality is, well, the state may be moving into what the governor calls phase 1, and who knows where we progress through the summer. I don't see us being in any position where we can hold a parade or a festival, whether we could try and get people to socially distance. I think the responsible action here is just to say that these are uncertain and tough times, and it requires us to make certain and tough decisions. And that's simply that we are going to have to cancel the parade and the festival, and do it now and do it early, and not have people go through planning and work only to do it later.
well, I know a lot of businesses have canceled conventions for next year. I mean, a lot of things into next year have already been canceled, but just want to get everybody's consensus on the council. Dwayne, Darren, Bridget?
Cancel it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that stuff
Risky.
might be very different by Labor Day, but to Connor's point and your point, you can't just click your fingers and hold a parade. You need
Well, that's
months
the
and months
biggest
of
problem.
planning.
That
And
particular, yeah, that parade takes a lot of pre-planning. There's a lot of planning with that ahead of time. So
yeah.
There's that super famous example of Philadelphia, I'm not surprised, having their parade during the flu epidemic in the early 1900s, and St. Louis canceled it. And St. Louis did a lot better.
Yeah, I
Fortunately.
mean, the other thing I look at are, kids like my kids' ages who, social distancing, while you can explain it to them a dozen times, it takes
They don't
half
get
as
it.
many minutes for them to forget. The concept of something normal, the concept of candy, the concept, all these things, just, we wouldn't be able to do it the way we would typically be able to do it. And we wouldn't be able to inform people of all the changes or differences. Not to mention, honestly, it takes a considerable amount of coordination and effort with Montgomery County Police to close the roads. And it's just things that right now I believe are best just to say, we're sorry, and we hope we're back to do it again in 21.
okay. Okay, so definitely 4th of July bike parade and the Labor Day parade with the Paint the Town. We're going to cancel those. The food truck night, I know that food trucks are allowed, but we could still have food trucks without setting up the tables. Or Dwayne, what are your thoughts on food truck night?
I'd have to talk to the rest of the board from the KBDA. I was reading today about other towns and cities that are encouraging food trucks, but I'm going to err on the side of caution here. I just think it's so risky.
Well,
Okay.
Dwayne, I know this has always been your thing, but my two thoughts are, I guess if you set them up in such a way that people just bought and took it away, took it home. However, I caveat that by saying we have been working really, really hard to promote our town restaurants and get their takeout programs and their delivery programs and their online ordering up and running. And in talking to many of them, well, it's certainly not 100% of where they were. Many of them are getting by. And a lot of that is due to the fact that the town has been marketing it, has been pushing it. And our residents, are rallying around our local restaurants. And I think they're doing a wonderful job. And I would hate to then introduce food trucks who, while a part of our community through Food Truck Night, are not the brick and mortar of our town. And I think it could be received as a bit of a slap in the face from our restaurant owners who are working 7 days a week to just make sure that they're making the ends meet. I would rather put all of our investments, time and energy into continuing to promote our local town restaurants.
You're not going to get an ounce of argument out of me on that. I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Great, perfect.
All right, so I'm hearing, just so we know how to not promote it or to put it on our calendar, do you want to check with the KBDA and confirm, but at least cancel it through June, July, and August? Maybe look at September as a possible, depending on where we are?
Yeah, I'll check with them tomorrow for sure.
Okay. I think those are the main events that we had coming up.
Hey, Dwayne. Sorry, quick question. I wonder if KBDA, when you guys talk about it, maybe in place of food truck nights, there's a way to create a buy local night, right? Like everybody's still going home, but it's the same concept of supporting your communities. And it's a once a month, try and make an effort and work with our restaurant owners that they're putting together something cool for that specific night, that it's in a way replacing it, but filling that space with a way to promote our local restaurants and drive additional business there.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't. I mean, if it's possible, I think like a weekly reminder to residents that, you know, here are our main restaurants in town. You know, they need your help to keep the doors open long term. So, yeah, anything we can do for them, I wouldn't just once a month. If we could do it frequently, that'd be great.
Well, I think we are sending e-blasts out at least every 2 weeks. Every other week, we're sending something out. So.
Yeah, I know Carrie Ann has been coordinating with all of them as they adjust their hours or offerings or update online ordering, go to family style meals. She's been updating the information on our kind of COVID resources page, and then it's in every one of those e-blasts. But this might be a way to work with Carrie Ann and develop more of like a marketing pitch, right? Like a way to tie the old concept of food truck night into a way to support those businesses. And we don't have to obviously do it here, but Dwayne, I think, you know, you seem to have a very good thumb on the pulse of the restaurants. And I didn't want to say eating, but you know, you seem to know what's going on at the restaurants. But I think this is a way that KBDA can kind of help, you know, rise the tides of its own members.
Okay.
Sure. Yep.
All right. So sounds like we're all in agreement. I'd open it up to anybody in the audience if you have to make your comments, but unless you're for keeping something open, I think, or having something, I think we're all in agreement here.
And for the record, in the comments, Joe Campbell did also advocate for postponing both until next year.
Okay. All right. Okay. Does anybody on the council have anything else they want to report? Bridget, start with you. No? Okay. Darren?
No, I think I've covered enough for the election. Thank you.
Okay. Dwayne, anything you've got to report?
Not tonight. No, thank you.
Okay. Connor?
Two things. One is DRB. As a reminder, it is not a DRB meeting, but there is a community meeting tomorrow night. I believe it is it's a virtual meeting. It is going to be held by a developer. This is Tom Baralt. He is going to be reviewing the preliminary plan and site plan applications for the construction of a new multifamily and commercial mixed use project. That is the project to be located at 10509 Summit Avenue. That is the northeast corner of Summit and Knowles Avenue, kind of the big green field behind where Knowles Station Wine and Company is. So I believe that information is on our town website in communication with the applicant. They had just put together their final stuff. They are putting that out. That will be on our website, but it is scheduled for 7 to 8 p.m. tomorrow night, May 12th. And then the only other thing I have is just one more thank you to Simo, who's a town resident, and to Bruce Pike and Pike Productions for lighting up the town hall blue in support of Healthcare Heroes, and to Montgomery County Television for taking what has turned out to be just a beautiful time-lapse video of the building switching from daytime through dusk to nighttime and lighting up. I'm hopeful that people got to see it. I know a lot of people aren't going out as much as they used to, but we certainly got many wonderful photos and videos of it that I know, you know, the town can make use of for years to come. But it was a beautiful gesture to all of those healthcare heroes. And you know, we have a unique populace that we do have a lot of frontline medical workers with the hospitals, the NIH, Walter Reed. So our residents, we share a lot, both in the civilian and military healthcare industries that are our residents. And the ones that I spoke to who saw it or saw the pictures of it were very, very touched.
Just to correct you, it's the Maryland Municipal Cable TV, not
Thank
the
you.
Montgomery County.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's the Municipal Cable.
Sorry, Melissa.
Are
Yeah.
we,
Montgomery Municipal
Sorry.
Cable. Yeah.
I know it's not my turn, but I have a
Go
question.
ahead.
Do we have any plans to do that for some of the other essential workers? I'm thinking, you know, like custodial, janitorial, the people who are delivering the food, that kind of stuff. It'd be nice if we gave them a little, you know, high five.
On my
Do it
window, it's right there.
Virtually.
Oh. That's not how it works on mine. I will tell you the technology, because I was able to see them setting it up. They can do many, many colors. This was a kind of a unique setup where, you know, ideas and capabilities just kind of collided.
Well, it doesn't have to be that. I just meant like
Yeah.
a little, you know.
Yeah, but I do think there's, I know the mayor worked tirelessly today on our beautiful fountain, but there's maybe options there too. You know, this one happened to be one that the governor put out, right? And said, hey, it would be great if people can do things, and things just kind of came together.
Right, the governor announced that he was lighting up Annapolis and the state buildings in Annapolis in blue, and that's what started the conversation. I mean, my idea was.
Oh yeah, no, I think.
But the fact that.
No, I think it's nice, and I'm not, you know.
Yep, but I think it's something that where there's opportunities to, and I'm using this as a direct pun, shine the light on other groups where we, hey, I am full of dad jokes since I saw that guy on Kensington Parkway. I would love to, personally, and whatever I can do to help, and whether it's a small gesture or a large gesture, or, you know, I do think that's part of what makes our community special, is that we do care about all of those groups of individuals. And if there's a way that we can bring light, I did it again. If there's a way that we can kind of lift them up, I'm all for it, Bridget.
Okay. All right. Anything else from the council? I would just remind you that we do have a food drive on Sunday here at Town Hall. And I believe it's from 10 to 4. We'll be sending something out, and it'll be in the newsletter as well. And this is this is probably in lieu of our Thanksgiving dance with the Nighthawks, and they are a co-sponsor, and we're collecting food and gift cards for Bethesda Health. So that is on Sunday. So just have to drive up, open your trunk, and we'll take the food out. So Connor, do you have something?
Just two other things following along in the comments. Thank you, Melissa. If you have not seen the time-lapse video of the town hall going blue, Melissa posted the link to the video that's on YouTube in the chat to this Zoom meeting. You can find it there. We have a link to it also off the town website. And then Al Carr let me know that there are a few broken links related to the community meeting for 10509 Summit Avenue. So I will get with Matt immediately after this, figure out what those are, work with the applicant, and make sure that that is all corrected by tomorrow.
Okay, good. All right, thank you. Let's see, is this public appearances? Yeah, you have, okay, Matt says he doesn't have anything. Susan, do you have anything? No, okay, public appearances. So anyone want to say something that's not on the agenda? Connor, I'm going to rely on you because I can't see much on my pad here.
I don't see anybody raising hands, and I don't see any comments yet in the chat, but if people do want to speak up, either bring yourself off of mute or just let us know in the chat window so we can call on you. I don't see any.
Okay, well, let's move on to ordinances then. Matt?
So this is ordinance number O-02-2020, an ordinance of the Mayor and Town Council for fiscal year 2021 FY21. We held a public hearing at the April 20th Town Council meeting. The public hearing and comment was extended till 4 p.m. this past Friday, May 8th. We did not receive any additional comments further what we received at the April 20th.
Okay, council, any questions? We'll need a motion.
I move that we adopt ordinance number O-02-2020, an ordinance of the Mayor and Town Council for the fiscal year 2021 or FY21 budget.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, so that sets the tax rates in the town. They will remain the same as the previous fiscal year. And Susan will go ahead and submit that to the county and the state. Ordinance number O-03-2020. This is a public hearing for an ordinance that would amend our current code, which requires a specific reason to obtain an absentee ballot. There was legislation in the Maryland General Assembly back in 28. We now need to make this correction to our code, so we abide by state law.
Well, council, any questions? Is there a motion?
So
I'm sorry.
We're
This is
just
public
here.
hearing. I'm sorry.
Public hearing.
I'm sorry. I'm standing on my feet here. Yes, this is a public hearing. So is any questions though from the council first? Okay. Any questions?
No,
from
I guess I would simply say that, you know, I feel like state law trumps our code. I'm all for cleaning up our code to reflect this, but I also think that one of the things that the pandemic has highlighted is we probably have other areas that we should be cleaning up as well. So we can do this as a one-off, or we can step back and say, do we want to amend the code and charter to provide for something that probably will never happen again in my lifetime, but an emergency election plan.
Okay. Anybody else? Is there any public comments?
I'm seeing none in the chat so far.
Okay. Well, I think we should go ahead and just clean this one up, Darren. I agree. I mean, there are a lot of things, we talk about it all the time, that we, things that need to be cleaned up, but since we've gotten this far, but as I said, it's cleanup.
That's fine. That's fine too.
Okay. So we would need a motion to keep the hearing open until, I don't have a calendar in front of me, until the Friday before the next meeting.
ballots for this if somebody wanted to absentee for this election. Like you don't have to extend the public hearing. They could.
Oh, we could just adopt it tonight?
Because it would remove the oath requirement from our absentee for the town election.
Okay, so we don't have to keep it. Okay.
Correct.
All
It's
right.
up to the council.
Do you want to go ahead then? And Matt says we can go ahead and adopt it if we wanted to tonight. And that way it removes that oath thing, even though we can't do it anyway.
By adopting it tonight, we're just trying to clean it up prior to our June 1st election, even though
Correct.
we know we can't do it anyways because of state law.
Right.
And if we're planning on doing it, next month anyways, I mean, I don't believe it hurts to adopt it tonight in lieu of leaving the record open another month.
Okay.
So just to not to be a fly in the ointment, but the provision, what it does is it removes the entire oath from the code. So you're no longer even affirming that you are a legally qualified voter to vote in Kensington. At least when I've been working on this current election, I tried to minimally modify this oath so that it removed a stated reason, but it also kept some affirmation that the person filling out the ballot was a legally qualified voter, which I think is a valuable tool to ensuring election integrity. So I guess my feeling is state law trumps our code. So we are already proceeding with an oath that does not require a stated reason for the person casting the ballot. But I still think that, like other municipalities, we should be having an oath that they're a legally qualified voter and that they are the one that marked the ballot and put it in the envelope. And so rather than deleting the entire oath, I would rather step back and amend it for future use, and because we're already doing it for this election.
So do you want to just pull it now?
I would postpone it.
Okay.
Do you need a motion to do that?
Well, I don't know that it was on our ballot, on our agenda for a vote. I don't know. We'll see what Matt thinks. He gets the big bucks.
We could just delay it until the June meeting.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to continue consideration of this ordinance O-03-2020 until the next town council meeting.
And keep the public record open.
Okay. And keep the public record open
Sure.
to what is the Friday before the,
It would be the 5th, June 5th, Friday, June 5th at 4 p.m.
okay. Did you get that? Friday, June 5th,
4 p.m.
4 p.m.
Hey, Darren,
Yes.
what are the practical implications? Like, so, okay, there's an oath, you sign it. How would you prove that? What are the legal repercussions for breaking it? I mean, it's all very nice and ominous and stuff, but like, really, how would you ever enforce that?
So the oath includes not just, the person's signing that they are a legally registered voter, but it includes their name, address, date, and signature. And I think Sue Ellen was recommending that we add a date of birth. And so when those ballots are received by the election supervisors, they pull the rolls and confirm the information in that oath to what's on the voter rolls. So I think it's a twofold purpose. One is making sure that the name, date of birth, and address align. And the other is just to attest that they're a legally registered voter.
But don't they already do that with the codes from the envelope of the ballot? Like, I thought that was what we talked about last time.
I'm sorry, what already do that?
Yeah, I think the point is what we described at the beginning of the meeting about this coming election's ballots and is what you're trying to design, and just tabling this until we can get the code to wrap around the process that we've put together for June 1st.
What?
Sounds like business, okay?
No, I just wanted to know, like, what happens, you know, so I vote for my husband, Dems down the line, he's a solid R, he hates me forever. How would, like, could you really go after me for this? Like,
I think in general, we don't assume that voters are conducting fraud. I mean, we see that sort of in a debate in the national platform. And I think we have to make that assumption on the local platform. But we do things that I think, so if somebody comes to us and says, what did you do to ensure that that election had integrity? We can say, well, we numerically numbered the outer return envelope that is returned, and we check that against the voter roll to make sure that's the ballot envelope that was sent to this person. We ask for identifying information such as their name, address, and date of birth so that we can confirm that against the rolls. And I think there is some benefit to having somebody sign an affirmation that they're the one that voted.
yeah.
Any other questions? There's a motion on the table. It hasn't been seconded. The motion was to wait until June.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Bridget, Dwayne, what's your stories?
I want to do it.
What are you doing? Dwayne, what are you?
That's fine. That's fine.
You're going
June's
with
fine.
you're going with Darren and Connor to wait till June? Okay.
Traitor.
All right. Thank you.
Are you a no, Bridget, or?
I'm a no, Darren.
Okay, I just,
Yeah. I
Do
can
it.
tell. So Susan, 3-1. All right. What's up?
Good.
Okay. I think that's everything on the agenda tonight. Is there anything else anybody wants to bring up on the council? We're good? All right. We just need a motion to adjourn.
please vote against it, Bridget.
I want to hang out more.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Dwayne seconding? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you very much. Bridget, if you want to stay on, you can.
Happy hour starts now, guys.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you all. And we will be in
Earlier.
contact with the candidates tomorrow and with some information. Okay. All right. Thank you.